Here at the NFL Combine, Erin Summers alongside Saints legend Luke McCown and Matt Miller from ESPN. You have covered all things this upcoming draft. So I need to know, is this week the Super Bowl for you, or is it the actual draft?
The actual draft is the Super Bowl because that's fun. This is like tax time for an accountant, It's stressful. There's a lot going on. You're trying to make sure you don't forget anything, or like you talk to a team and you don't say a player's name wrong or something. So this is a stressful week. The workouts are fun. Like once we get to the actual workouts, you kind of get to kick your feet up, and that's like, we just get to geek out and watch football at that point. The media stuff is a blast. I love getting to talk to like different fan bases and different people, but it's a little bit stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Hey, so number 9 and number 40, we want to jump right in.
Yeah.
Your 2-round mock for the New Orleans Saints.
If I did do it today, gosh, the Saints are the hard team for me. I'm going to be honest, because you could go anywhere at 9. So I tend to go like Jalen Walker, Georgia, because I think when you have a team that has needs in so many different spots, it's like, let's just get impact players. Like, let's get a guy that can be a difference maker, a tone setter. He's played linebacker. He's played edge rusher. I say you just let him pin his ears back and go get the quarterback.
Yeah.
I know he's a little bit undersized at 245 pounds, but, man, every time I watched Georgia play, he was the best player on the field.
And a guy that can assimilate into a Brandon Staley defense that goes from 3-4 to 4-3, and he's dabbled in both. Maybe a guy that can do multiple things in that defense. Yeah,
and we saw that some when Staley was with the Chargers. He would have guys who fit that mold of, like, sometimes you're standing up, sometimes you're stacking as a linebacker, sometimes you're just putting your hand in the dirt and going and getting it. So I would love Jalen Walker if he's there at 9. At 40, I think you go out the other side. I think you got to get wide receivers, playmakers on that side of the ball, especially with the future uncertain about Chris Olave.
Sure.
I think you have to be looking at those wideouts. This is a good year to take a wideout in that range.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see many come off the board in the top 20 picks. Maybe just Travis Hunter.
Yep.
So when you get back to 40, it's like, okay, is Matthew Golden from Texas there? That's kind of, I think his range is in that area. Is someone like Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, who is a little bit more physical, 6'3", 215 pounds. Even the tight end position, like Mason Taylor. If Mason Taylor's there at 40, like, I'm all over that, right?
Yeah,
because they need that someone that can just be that difference maker on offense. We know, like, Kamara's great. Derek Carr's going to be back at quarterback. Like, let's give him some help. Let's give him some weapons.
Yeah, so what about a Tet McMillan?
So I'm torn on Tet, and I never want to, like, talk badly about a prospect. I have some concerns about his ability to separate over the top.
Okay.
He's 6'5".
Yeah.
He can win at the catch point. I think he's quicker than fast, and you see that sometimes. He'll take a hitch route and he'll make a guy miss, but then he's getting caught from behind.
Right.
And a lot of contested catches where he doesn't separate down the field. So I think, red area, he's going to be a big impact because he's going to be able to just out-jump guys and make a play for the ball. I don't see the Drake London comps necessarily just because I don't know that he has that juice to pull away from guys.
Yep. You mentioned Travis Hunter, and you mentioned him as a wide receiver. Obviously, he's taken interviews as a corner. He was here today as a DB. How do you see him?
Man, he can do whatever he wants to do. For me, like if I was running a team and he said, "Hey, I only want to play corner," like, okay, do it. If he only want to play receiver, that's fine. I think he's better as a receiver than he is a corner. And I watched him play in person this year, and like, he's not the biggest guy. He's 6'1", 185. I worry about corners. We were just talking about Tet McMillan and Drake London. I worry about him at 185. I'm going to come downhill and tackle those guys consistently. We saw it in 2023. He missed 3 games with a lacerated liver because he took a really hard hit on the sideline. He's not this big. He's not Patrick Surtain out there. He's a smaller guy. So I would rather him have the ball and evade tacklers than be the guy who has to go tackle those. Like, DK Metcalf outweighs him by like 30 pounds. We don't really need him trying to make tackles. I think he's a playmaker. I would personally try to sway him. And here's what I would tell him. Wide receivers make about $25 million a year. Corners make about 15. It's an easy decision, and you don't have to tackle anyone playing wide receiver.
So you don't see any opportunity for him to play both ways.
I think he'll do it. Yeah. And I mean, you've played in the NFL. You know how hard that is to play one position. Yeah. But he's done it. I think the biggest thing will be can he handle the workload mentally on both sides? To be in meetings, how do you handle that? And I know from Colorado, he would go to corner meetings. That was his primary position. Yep. And then they would have a package for him at wide receiver, basically. He's a 4.0 student. He's whip smart, so there's no lack of ability there, but it's just from a time management. Can he handle learning both positions? I would worry about the development. Can you develop effectively at two positions, or are you holding yourself back from becoming a great player at one position? Are you sacrificing that to be good at two?
Not everybody can be Taysom Hill and be in 5 different position group meetings every day.
Yeah,
correct. And Taysom, even within those, he had very specific roles to play in those meetings. So he would be in meetings, and Taysom was after my time, but he would be in meetings only for the time that they were talking about his role, his plays, right? And then he would get up and go to the other tool meeting, if you will.
Sure.
So it's different in that aspect. But to Matt's point, like imagine trying to come down and tackle Derrick Henry at 184 pounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it's just. I don't see that being able to translate with the load and the amount of game planning that goes in. It's just a different level of game planning than it even is from the college game. So I don't see it happening.
Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch, like to see him make a go at it. And I know he said it today. He wants both. They asked him if he returned kicks. He said, I already have 2 jobs. I don't need 3. But, I would put him at wide receiver and tell him he's our punt returner.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. For sure. Those are your 2 jobs. Stop trying to tackle people.
Corner is a position that's also come up for the Saints in this draft, and they do have Paulson Adebo, who potentially go into free agency here, is a free agent come in the next couple weeks. And then you have Alontae Taylor, who has moved inside, outside throughout the season, and then Kool-Aid McKinstry. But do you think the Saints need to look at adding another corner?
If you lose Paulson, yes. Yeah. I think that's the short answer. And at 9, there might not be one true corner having come off the board. I'm a big Will Johnson fan, and I know he's had the foot injury, the turf toe, so he hasn't played a whole lot recently, but I'm still a fan of his. He's my number 3 overall player. I still think he's great, and he played 2 games this year. He had 2 pick sixes. I mean, he's built. He's 6'2", 200 pounds.
He's a big guy.
Yeah, he is. And folks will get on about, he made some business decisions as a tackler. Every cornerback ever does, right? Like I grew up watching Deion Sanders make business decisions at corner. The guy's the greatest to ever do it. So I don't worry about that too much. He is a ball hawk, and he erases his side of the field. So if you could, I loved Kool-Aid last year. If you could have a Will Johnson and Kool-Aid as your corner duo for the next 4 or 5 years, like that's a pretty dang strong secondary.
Yeah. So a couple of other mocks have safety at number 9.
Yeah.
Talking about the young man from Georgia, Malachi Starks. What do you see there?
That's early for me. 9 would be early. I actually have a round 2 grade on Starks. I thought he had a down year compared to 2023. He had to play a little bit out of position this year. I think he's more of a nickel than he is a true free safety.
Okay.
I think he plays in that, like, Buda Baker role. That's where you would want him kind of hanging out more near the line of scrimmage. I think he struggled at times playing deep safety just because he didn't have that speed to close on the ball. I think both Texas games kind of highlighted that, where he got beat deep a little bit. So 9 would be early. Now 40, if he's there, like, that's a different conversation.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, a lot of those nickel-type safety guys have fallen in the draft. Brian Branch fell. Buda Baker fell, Antoine Winfield Jr. fell. So if he slips, I think 40 is a much better value.
Love it.
How much do you value them participating in the drills that are about to happen?
Yeah, like, I want everyone to compete.
Yeah.
By April 24th, I'll forget who did and didn't. I think, it's like I'm not going to knock a guy for not competing because we don't always know what's going on, especially now with the college football playoff doesn't end until February, it feels like. So it's like, especially those 4 teams that had the late run. They're 8 weeks behind in their combine prep. Yeah. So you can't really get on a guy if you played at Ohio State or Notre Dame, it feels like your season just ended, and now we want you to run the most important 40-yard dash of your life. Like, you kind of understand those guys wanting to hit Pauls and do it at their pro day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Saints fans want to know about Spencer Rattler entering year 2 and what that looks like. Obviously, there's questions surrounding the contract and all the things with Derek Carr. Mickey sounded very convincing yesterday with his endorsement of what they're trying to do with Carr to keep him there. Let's talk about Spencer Rattler and what he needs to show stepping into year 2.
My evaluation on him coming out of college even was he just needs to be consistent. You'll watch him make a handful of plays and you'll think, oh my goodness, he's got it. He's a playmaker. He can move around. He's got a big arm, especially for being a little guy. He's got a big arm and he sees the field well, but he's just got to do it consistently. And I think you want to rein him in a little bit almost, to where he's not taking some of the chances that he made in college especially. But, I would be excited about the development of him, that developing quarterbacks has kind of died in the NFL. It
Right.
just doesn't really happen anymore. So I think
Correct.
when you have a guy that has some of those tools and traits, like, yeah, let's see what he can become, especially now with, with Kellen there, someone who has that experience playing quarterback. He's been influential in developing some quarterbacks. What he just did in Philadelphia with a quarterback that can move around, and Jalen Hurts. Jalen and Spencer are very, very different builds,
Correct.
even.
No,
but,
right.
a quarterback that can move around and make some plays, I would be fascinated to see how Rattler develops under Kellen.
So, speaking of Jalen Hurts, let's talk about Jalen Milroe, who I think is the perfect comp to Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. Not the most polished passer coming out of college, right? Highly athletic, incredibly intelligent, can do exactly what Kellen Moore would like to do.
No, that's the dream for Jalen Milroe, is that you become Jalen Hurts. I've been asked about that a couple times in the last month. I think with Jalen Hurts, what helped him more than anything was Lincoln Riley. You know, they completely changed his passing mechanics. They loosened him up. If you remember at Alabama, he was so stiff and robotic, and everything looked like he was thinking about it. Well, he gets to Oklahoma, and it's completely changed. He's loosened up. His accuracy got better. I think Milroe needs his version of Lincoln Riley, and that might be Kellen Moore. Somebody who can say, let's build you from the ground up. And you know this better than me. You should be talking about this. Like the footwork and everything.
Absolutely.
There's so much disconnect in his game. He just needs that time and someone that he trusts to say, like, let's rebuild you. Let's start at the base. Because, like you said, he might run a 4.3 here. He's a fantastic athlete.
Yep.
And I think if you draft him, just like they did with Jalen Hurts in Philly, you want to have a package for him early. Like, let's get this guy on the field because he is such a difference maker with the ball in his hands. And we saw it at Alabama, but he's really interesting because he regressed as a passer this year.
Yeah,
you just saw it kind of fall apart. And so I think that's where these interviews are going to be huge for him is teams being able to find out, hey, like, what happened? Like, early in the year, you were on fire, and you actually the arm got worse throughout the season.
Yeah.
So what happened there, and how do we get you back? Yep,
right.
Exactly.
With the way that this draft is, do you think there are going to be any surprises in the top few picks?
I think this year we might get more surprises because, like, if Luke and I did draft boards together, in most years they're going to be kind of similar. Like the top 15 guys are the top 15 guys. Mm-hmm. This year is going to be completely different because there's just huge disparity in the top 15, definitely in the first round. So I think we'll get some surprises. I have nightmares about this happening, about a player getting picked, and I'm like, wait, what? Who got picked? But, Michael Penix at 8 last year was this monster
I called that
surprise.
one, by the way.
You called that one?
I said somebody's going to take him inside the 10.
Yep. So maybe it wasn't a surprise to him. It was, it's like, but on draft night, there's always going to be something shocking that happens, and it is literally our worst nightmare. Like, okay, let's be prepared for everything just in case.
How much do you sit there and check off your mocks?
Oh, yeah. No one will. I'll probably be the only one that would admit to you that we do it, but yeah. You want to know, and like, I don't compete with like my colleagues and stuff, but my buddies will be watching the draft, texting me like, "You got that one wrong. You got that one wrong." And it's like, okay, this is a hard job. We're trying to project like what 500 players are going to do, and 32 teams are going to do 7 times. So, but yeah, we're aware of it for sure.
So who's that under the radar player, small school, maybe small conference, that's going to surprise people here at the Combine?
You guys might be aware of Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, but I think he's a first round pick, and that might be the surprise. He had a great Senior Bowl week. Someone that could surprise here. Gosh, I think because of like social media, we're almost immune to surprises now.
Right.
Because like everybody's got a highlight reel.
Sure.
There's always, but I think Bashal Tutin, the running back from Virginia Tech, is going to do really well. He's going to test exceptionally well. And in this running back class, he gets forgotten about. Right. But I think he would be the guy. And I know Tech isn't a small school, but we all know like there's 5 or 6 great running backs in this class. I think he's been forgotten about to some degree, and he could really shine here.
Awesome.
Dalton Holker was somebody that obviously stood out last year because of the catches, multiple, that he made, and he's with the
awareness, to make the catch. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us today.
Always happy to. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.